Hi, my name is Amanda, and I am the CEO and lead therapist here at Atrium Family Services. We are a mental health organization here in the community of Charlotte. Each week, we'll be coming to you with content related to trending topics in mental health. Please share with your family, friends, like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon, and this is Atrium Family Services, and we are happy to have you here on our YouTube channel this afternoon. We are going to be having a special guest where we are going to discuss our very first topic, which is it is okay to not be okay. My name is Amanda, and I'm the CEO and lead therapist here at Atrium Family Services. Each week, we'll bring different topics to you guys here online where we discuss different topics that are related to mental health, current trending topics, and even topics you guys will be able to suggest. We will turn it over to our guest now and have her tell us about herself. Her name is Veronica Hodges. Veronica, thank you for coming in today. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I am currently a medical auditor and physician educator. So what I currently do is read medical records and educate physicians on documentation. I also am a Reiki practitioner, which is a holistic type of service or holistic modality that assists in the emotional well-being of individuals. It's the holistic, not the scientific. So let's make sure we have that part clear. I'm also a community advocate, so I am working with people a lot, and I appreciate you having me on the show, and let's talk.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. So before we get into the topic, I actually have one question for you, if you can. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with mental health at all, whether it be personal, professional? What relationship do you currently have with the mental health world?
Let's talk about it. So let's everything you just said is personal for me and professional. Okay. It's personal for me because mental health is something that I never, ever, ever, as a child or a young adult, knew anything about. I knew about dental health. Every 6 months, we got our teeth cleaned. I knew about physical health. We got our physicals. And anytime we got a bump or scrape, we would go to a doctor. But we never, ever, growing up, knew anything about mental health. Now, as an adult, I've had my experience with mental health. I've had my experience with therapy. And although I thought prior to therapy I was self-aware, I thought that I had a lot of things together. My thought process was, as long as you look like you got it together, you have it together. Right? So I myself have undergone therapy and enjoyed every inch of it, including the painful part. The painful part allowed me to see and sit in my pain. Then look back and evaluate, and it made my thought process different. So professionally, I'm a Reiki practitioner. So I'm also working with people's emotional well-being from a holistic standpoint. What I find is people come usually to a holistic practitioner for help. There are certain things that I cannot do, but there are certain things that I see. So it's called our scope of practice. You know that because you are a therapist.
Absolutely.
So sometimes people don't recognize their scope because they don't recognize boundaries.
We like to step in other people's lanes. I get it. We don't like to drive in our own lane.
Right. But in this lane, you can see and you can actually feel the emotional imbalance of people.
Absolutely.
And when that happens, if it's something that is ongoing, not improving, which we consider worsening in the medical field, at that point, this person may need a scientific modality.
Absolutely. Which can be therapy.
Which can be therapy.
I would say oftentimes probably should be therapy, but
Right.
I'm a little biased and partial, obviously.
Right.
So you said something there that I actually want to touch on. You said, when you were younger, you kind of didn't really consider therapy. A lot of us didn't have a lot of information or knowledge about therapy. And I agree, especially since it's become definitely more widespread as time has gone forward, not obviously back when, in the past. So when we talk about it's okay to not be okay, I want you to kind of give me your experience because obviously there was a time when you did not know it was okay to not be okay because as you were kind of saying earlier, we can kind of like, well, what is that? We can ignore that. We can, well, what's going on? You know, and we're taught that a lot of times, which is kind of the disenfranchised portion of it. You know, I was speaking with a colleague. I was like, do you realize how many things we're taught to do in school, right? From home ec to, I mean, I can tell you how to build a little wooden clock, which I'm never going to build. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, the tools aren't useful, but what about not even being taught that? Something simple as, you know, it's okay to not be okay. And thinking about the behaviors even, you know, of children, a lot of times who don't realize it's okay to not be okay. So what is your, so tell me a little bit about that. I have another question. We'll kind of roll into that one later. But in relation to it's okay to not be okay, tell me about a time or tell me about that time when you did not know that it was okay to not be okay.
Oh, that was a long time, Amanda, a very long time. So I'm going to take it from a cultural standpoint, and then we can take it from my cultural standpoint, and then the world's cultural, the U.S., our culture. Cultural, you pick it up, whatever it is, pick it up and keep moving. Pick it up and keep moving. Pick it up and keep moving. So what are you picking up? Whatever you're picking up is building. It's building as you're picking it up, and so now it's generational. And it's generational at that point. So you're picking it up, put it on my back, and keep moving. Pick it up and put this on my back, and keep moving.
Generational luggage.
And until you feel your knees buckle.
I call it that white knuckling kind of, you know, you're white knuckling the handlebars and on a bicycle that's not even moving. Right. So, and you're just sitting there taking on all the pressures from your mother's 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 mother or your father's 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 father, and you don't even realize it because it's become so habitual.
It is, to the point that if I didn't realize it, my grandmother's grandmother didn't realize it.
And the next thing you know, a couple generations after you, it still becomes, it's a thing. It's where we are still a lot of times suffering from, you know, generational anxiety and depression that has continued to go on because we never learned it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay not to be okay.
It's more like, well, pick up your bootstraps and suck it up and dry your eyes up. And, you know, we feel like that's promoting a toughness in people when it actually is not. It is actually promoting less self-esteem. It's actually promoting people to be more hurt and to actually avoid dealing with their issues. When we do promote, you know, a lot of times when kids get hurt, you know, you've seen it several times. Well, suck it up and don't cry and dry your eyes off. Like, that's not helpful, but we have learned it as a helpful behavior. Meanwhile, it's harmful. Right. So think about how much harm we're doing simply because we don't know it's okay to not be okay.
Right. Right.
So I got another question for you. You ready? I really like these answers we're getting here. When is it okay to not be okay? In your even profession and again in your personal life, but in your maybe even, I hate to say opinion, but based on what you know, when is it okay to not be okay?
I'll say in my experience. Let's say that. In my experience, anytime you are not okay, it's okay if you recognize it.
Absolutely.
If you don't recognize it, or if you don't think it's okay or safe to recognize it, that's when it becomes a problem. We all have things that we must overcome. We all have things that happens to us. Everyone had something happen to them. It's okay to recognize it. And it's okay to release the judgment, the guilt, or the shame that may be attached to it that you never attached to. Someone else attached it to you. So it's okay whenever you're not okay to not be okay.
Simply put, and the way I would put it, when is it okay to not be okay? When you're not okay.
When you're not okay.
When you're not okay.
When you're not
that
okay.
is the exact moment when it's okay to not be okay. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to that because we're busy telling ourselves, I'm okay. Or you tell everyone, you know, friends, family, coworkers are like, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm good. Or I'm fine. Yeah. Which is our normal response. I think it becomes conditional. I think
mine used to be two-part. It was two-part. I'm okay. I got this paper to write. I'm okay. I got this doctor I need to go see. I'm okay because I'm overachieving, and that's what's shielding me from.
That's a whole nother topic.
I'm out here overachieving, and that's what's shielding me from not being okay. I'm fine.
I would say, Veronica, you're not alone. Just from everything that I know to be out here in the community and definitely what I do as a therapist, oftentimes clients do come to me because they have avoided at all costs that they're not okay. And, a lot of times, even though I would say mental health is about wellness, not just about illness, and that's just definitely a message I would like to convey to a lot of people. Mental health is about wellness. It's about checking on yourself. The same way we go to the doctor and kind of check on our bodies, mental health is about wellness. But a lot of times people do come to my office, desk, chair, however you want to put it, when they have absolutely avoided the fact that it's okay to not be okay up to a point. So now you're coming because, like, the walls are crashing. The pressure is there. Daily life as we know it has been obscured. And, we can no longer function, right? Because we have absolutely just completely ignored that we're not okay. And we've put enough cover over it. I call it, like, when I have clients, like, imagine sweeping it under the rug, right?
Oh, it's a rug.
Imagine in your head there's this room, like this chamber. And everything that you said, well, I'm okay. Imagine there's this really big rug in this room that's in your head that we walk into. And under that rug is every single moment where you told someone or denied that you weren't okay. So that's a lot of stuff under the rug eventually. Well, so eventually what that rug does is, just like if you had it in your home, it just kind of, the dirt starts to leak from underneath. And so, again, that's when you're feeling all of that you're feeling by the time you come into, your therapist, which I'm happy that you come, and you should absolutely go at that moment. However, we would not, suffer some things as severely as we do if we start to identify when we're not okay way before, it's at sub-zero level.
So your knees buckle.
The fire is on, all the, everyone's on deck. Yeah, and it's just, so if we could just start recognizing, when am I not okay? Let me check.
And just know that it's okay to recognize that. But here, cultural again, we were taught, just pray about it. It's going to be okay. Just pray about it. Don't leave what goes on in this house stays in this house. And I have recognized, even for me, this is just for me, I'm no religious views for Atrium family. I've recognized for myself that God is bigger than just pray about it. God created therapists. He created friend therapy. He created our mouths for us to communicate, our ears for us to hear, our tongue for us to talk and taste. So we have all these senses. So for me, it's just way bigger than just pray about it. Let's get all the resources that we need, because we have a holistic body. It's spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical.
And let's not forget the head and the body are absolutely connected, right?
Absolutely.
So I absolutely appreciate your feedback definitely on that one. And I hope that from that everyone kind of gets the information that they need, that it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay.
It's absolutely okay to not be okay. And when is it okay to not be okay?
When you're not okay.
So next question, how do you know when you are not okay? And you can speak about this from a personal standpoint. I'm definitely going to address it myself from a more broader end. But how do you know when you are not okay?
Okay, so I want to go back to the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental standpoint. Our bodies, I can't explain how our bodies were created, because I didn't create our bodies, right? But we can feel physically when mentally we're not okay.
We can.
Even those of us, like myself, who are very strong, you were created with a strong personality. That's what you have. So somewhere along the lines, someone took that strong personality and told you this is what you have to do. You have to be strong all the time. Physically, you can feel your heart racing when you're stressed.
Sweaty palms.
You can feel your palms sweating, or if you have chronic sweaty palms, let's figure out what's going on. You can also feel fatigued when you're stressed or when you're not okay. And you also know mentally when you're not okay. So for me, in the current state that I'm in, or the knowledge that I have, or the tools that I have now, I know when to say, "Oop, stop, you're irritated. You're irritated. I, Veronica, am irritated. So stop, whoa, stop, Why? Did you meditate today? Or is it that serious? If it's not, what is going on? This is me talking to myself. What is going on?
What's causing this?
What is causing this? And what is it that you truly need? It may just be a break. You just may need to stop.
We need to have a seat.
Yeah, or several seats. And then I may have to ask myself, who asked me in the midst of, say now, of the pandemic, to wash the dishes, wash the clothes, homeschool, and do my work, when the clothes are going to get washed anyway?
Who did ask?
Who asked you?
No one.
No one.
And you know what? We're probably going to ruffle a little, definitely some feathers with that one for sure. People are often, I think, so focused on household chores because I'll tell you this, as a therapist, household chores allow people to hide as well. There's definitely a line, there's a divided line there where you definitely want to maintain your living quarters in a very healthy condition. But when you begin to place those concerns of your household needs and chores above your own needs, that's when we're walking a different line. So I just want to definitely clarify that for all of our house people that may have. Okay, Veronica, so you were just telling me about how do you know when you're not okay, and some of the information you were giving us was related to like physical symptoms,
right?
Because that's the area and definitely which you probably, from your field, what you're saying, you see more of the physical symptoms for mental health. So how do you know when you're not okay?
Okay, so earlier we talked about the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional aspect of the body. It's the holistic body. When you're not okay, a lot of times you can feel it physically. You can feel your heart racing, which we call tachycardia. You can have sweaty palms. Some people experience headaches, body aches, and fatigue. For me, when my heart is racing, that means I have too much going on at one time. And I have to stop and I have to ask myself, well, why are we feeling this way? What's going on? And I may, because I'm a very naturally high-strung kind of person, right? Very naturally. So sometimes I put a little spin and talk to myself, wait, too much. I have put too much on my plate. Like now during this time, we're home with kids, we're working. We have all these things that we have to do. So in my mind, for the record, I'm on the record saying I, not you, not anybody else. I tell myself I have 10 things to do, and I pressure myself to get 10 things done, and my heart is racing. I need to stop, pause, whoa, what's important?
So prioritize.
Numero uno, number one, is myself.
Absolutely. You know what I tell people? What do they say on the airplane? Put your mask on first, right?
Right.
So how can we even tell others that we're not okay, or how do we know we're not okay if we're constantly running around putting other people's masks on for them? And they didn't even ask us to do so most times.
Right. Right.
So that's really awesome. I love that information because that's definitely helpful. I do love when we can point out a lot of the physical symptoms for people and help them understand that mental health is not just about what you think and necessarily about what you feel. Sometimes all the time, most times, our body is definitely responsive.
It is.
One of my favorite lines is the body can be definitely self-sufficient. When we have a lack of a vitamin or deficiency in some areas, the body will crave things to fulfill those deficits.
That is true.
So just like with mental health, the same thing happens a lot of times when we feel lonely. Our minds at that time often crave attention, maybe affirmations or esteem work, whether it be from internal or external. When we're depressed, oftentimes our body is craving the desire to deal with something, whether it's past, present, even future. A lot of times it's the body's need to deal with something so that the thoughts can pretty much line up and process and move forward in a direction that allow us to be healthier. One of the main ways I kind of help people understand how to identify when they're not okay is when you have a disruption in your normal daily activity. So you're normally a person that can get up in the morning, but all of a sudden now you cannot. You're normally a person that, is technically happy throughout the day, but lately you've had like this mood that you cannot shake, this extra amount of sadness or depression, because normal sadness is a thing. I think there's normal levels of sadness, there's normal levels of anxiousness. There's normal levels of pretty much everything that you feel. But when the levels have exceeded to the point where it has disrupted, your daily activity or your normal daily life, that's when it's a good time to kind of say, well, I'm not okay right now. And it may not be permanent. So I think sometimes even just putting the right now on it allows us as people to know when to move forward and even get help and correct whatever needs to be corrected in the moment. But definitely when, again, knowing that something different is going on right now. This is not my normal. I don't normally feel this, but especially when it's outside. And I really don't like to use the word normal, but we'll kind of make an exception. But when it's outside of what you usually feel or think, and it's not like your typical, well, I'm just changing my mind on what I want for dinner today because I'm feeling like pizza and I normally eat like spaghetti. You know what I mean? Like something like that. When it's, I've experienced this amount of sadness, and now the sadness has taken over so much I cannot get out of the bed. I cannot face work every day, or I'm having a difficulty doing so when normally I would not. So when there's a disruption to your day, that's definitely a good indicator to know when you're not okay. For myself personally, I think that's definitely how I kind of look at it oftentimes. When I notice I'm a little off my normal beaten path, when there's things I may typically be able to cope with, but just this time or in this moment I'm not able to, I as a therapist absolutely reach out to my therapist because it helps to have someone with that outside perspective to sometimes give you that view on what's happening. So a good way, again, is sometimes even people around you can say, well, you don't seem like yourself.
Right.
You're normally, Veronica, you come in here, you're all smiling and everything is great. And it's okay to have a bad day, but you've been it's been weeks now and this is not your typical. So sometimes even people around us, I won't say that's a more ironclad way to know when you're not okay, but that's definitely an additional way to kind of check in on things because people will be the first ones to say, well, what's wrong?
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Right.
Hi, Veronica,
Are
you
you
okay?
okay? Yeah.
Is everything
Right,
all right?
right.
And then sometimes we'll go quickly to being like, ooh, what's wrong with Veronica? But
Right.
we definitely can use those different areas and those different ways to kind of know when we're not okay. There's also other resources out there. I know on our website, definitely at atriumfamilyservices.com, we have a couple of articles that we've used to give information about mental health. And some of those include knowing when you're suffering from anxiety or depression. So there's definitely also resources. Don't become a self-diagnoser, please.
Right.
By any means necessary, do not become a self-diagnoser, for sure.
Right.
However, there are resources that you can utilize, whether it be looking into just some of the symptoms, and then that can maybe lead you into your therapist's office or even your medical practitioner. You can begin to ask questions, and they should be able to answer those.
That is true. Also, if you are not ready to take that step, talk to somebody, your friends, who you don't think are going to quote unquote judge you, or I have those friends. I'll call if whatever is here, I can get it out. I can.
Absolutely.
And the buck doesn't stop there because your friends are not therapists. But I think friend therapy or family therapy, if your family, of course, can have those conversations with you, it's okay to just tell someone if you're not okay.
And I will say,
if you're not afraid to come to therapy, right?
I will say that's definitely a good point. It is helpful to let it out versus holding it in. Holding it in is definitely what causes us to increase in symptoms, definitely not decline. However, I do try to caution people on using friends and family. No shade to all the friends and family that are good listeners out there. But what we do is we get caught up so much in telling friends and family our issues and really nothing reciprocated or nothing's really coming back to us in the way of help. It's more sometimes along like, well, I'm just agreeing with what you're saying because we're on the phone right now. Or, yeah, girl, you should feel like that. Or, really it's oftentimes just kind of a banter for the most part. And yes, that's absolutely healthy. But even if you're not ready to take those steps, if you found yourself disrupted, definitely try to work yourself towards taking those steps. Or even have your friends support you. Say, hey, I'm considering counseling, whatever information you get back. Sometimes you may get positive feedback about counseling. Sometimes people don't readily have the information to help you. But use family and friends more of a support. Use counseling definitely to treat the symptoms.
And don't be afraid of therapy. Therapy is okay. That's another topic. Therapy is okay.
Definitely add that to the next topic. It's okay to go to therapy.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions, I got kind of like a 2.5-part question.
Okay.
What should we do when we notice when we or someone else? And we kind of answered that. That's why it's a 2.5-part question. What should we do when we notice that we or someone else we know is not okay? And I put kind of hashtag, how do we check on our strong friend? So that's a 2-part question. I definitely wanted to address both separately. So what do we do when we know someone, or when you know you or someone around you is not okay? How do you approach that?
So 2-part question. How do we check on someone that's okay? And then how do we check on our strong friends?
How do we know when we or someone else is not okay? And we'll save the strong friend for later, because I thought
that's
that
a whole
was going to be fun.
Yeah,
that's a good one. So what do you do, or what should we do when we notice that we or someone else that we know is not okay? What should we do?
If you notice that someone is not okay and you are genuinely concerned, there's a difference being concerned and being, I'll say nosy, if that's a term that I can use on the show. Or inquisitive, let's just say that. Concerned versus inquisitive. If you're genuinely concerned, just ask, call, or just bring something by. If you know someone's not okay, take them something. Open the door. Let them know that you are there. Or just ask, I'm just checking in. How you doing? Open the conversation with, I know. Today, right now today, we are in a pandemic.
Absolutely.
Everybody, even the pets, have been shifted. Yes. Yes. So even this avenue, use yourself as an example. I've been shifted. Just call and check on you to see how you're doing during the shift. Because sometimes people just need to know that somebody cares.
Absolutely.
Or sometimes people need to just have that little button pushed so they can say, oh, so is it not just me? Okay, well, let me just say, I'm struggling. Parents across the nation right now are struggling because their children are struggling. Call your friends. Tell them, I know that you're stressed out and these kids are probably on your last nerve, but guess what? They're on their last leg. Check on your kids. Are you okay? We're obligated to do that if we care about people. And if you know that we're in a situation where we're not okay either, let's check on people. And I'm telling all of my friends, everyone that I come in contact with, even family, go to therapy.
Well, send them on in. Send them all.
Yeah, go. If I can go, me, the person that's always strong, that's always here for everyone, that's always going, ripping, running, I just have to be in everything, right? Or had to be. Go. It's okay. What you saw on TV growing up, the people in the straitjackets, that's not therapy. That's not therapy.
That was the MTV.
Yeah, that was TV. Yeah, that was me. That was the media.
That was the HBO version of what was really happening.
Yeah. And during this time, it's okay. So this is media therapy. You're still getting it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to piggyback off what you said, because I actually love that answer, because a lot of times we don't, I would say we shy away from checking on others because we're often like afraid of what I would say this to this person, but I'm afraid of what they're going to say oftentimes. So I tell people the first thing is to have those conversations. You know, this topic may even be, I would say it's a little personal to me. I just had to have a discussion with a friend like a couple of days ago who was not okay. And I wouldn't even say I was apprehensive about approaching it, but I kind of thought about this, like, well, I do this every day. So how do we start these conversations when I'm not in therapy? Because I know how to go into therapy mode, but I have to switch into friend mode.
Right.
So in friend mode, what I found was the best way to handle it was to just have, like you said, open the conversation. You know, we want to definitely not go into the conversation judgmental of everything that's before us, because when a person is coming to us and they are not okay, the absolute last thing they need is judgment.
Right.
The last thing they need is a lot of finger pointing, a lot of, well, here's what you should do and here's what you should do. And as I begin to kind of hear myself and I will say I was a little guilty because therapist mode does take over. So as I was hearing myself saying, well, you should, I kind of stopped and I was like, all right, no. Because that might not be what they needed to hear from a friend. I'm not your therapist. So let's just have a conversation first. So I definitely opened the door for that person to kind of talk and tell me everything that they felt in the moment. Like I said, just use me to vent. I did let the person know that I was concerned. So if, at minimal, we should be letting people know if we're concerned about their mental health or well-being. The biggest thing I sometimes see a lot of is that we don't. You know, we have seen someone struggling for a while. You know, a lot of times we have family members that have been struggling for some time. Ourselves, we struggle for a while. And the most we do is be like, well, that's just how they are. You know, or they're fine, or they're just going through at the time. Or, you know, not even once checking sometimes and say, hey, are you okay? Really, that's a really simple question a lot of times. You'd be surprised how people answer it.
Right.
We're afraid that the answer is going to be negative, but that's more our own issue. That our internal fears there before, you know, we can even deal with the person. We're dealing with ourselves, actually, before we get there and have the conversation. So the way to absolutely handle that, I feel like, is having the conversation and simply asking, hey, are you okay? And, you know, depending on the answer and depending on what you see in front of you, you may have a couple of more questions, but definitely going into it with the desire to help, the desire to be a friend, the desire to support the person, not the desire to fix or judge. You know, there never should be the desire to do that, because at that point we're not doing what's best for the person. That's when we're doing what's best for ourselves.
Yeah, well, in my current role, you know, I do provider education. So when our doctors are not doing what they're supposed to do, the last thing that they want to do in the midst of saving lives is for you to come and tell them what they're not doing and to come tell them what they should do. No one wants to hear that in the midst of whatever you're in. So your approach should always be from a non-judgmental, non-dictatorship type of standpoint. I understand that you are having a day where you, Amanda, are seeing 10 patients a day. I really get it. My goal here is to make sure that you are supported and that you have what you need. That approach is so much different than, you did not document this well.
Let me tell you everything that you need to do. That's a definitely different approach from that. So we should absolutely, when we notice that someone is not, someone else or ourselves is not okay, I think we should absolutely be brave enough to just have those conversations.
Yes.
So be able to approach the conversation with definitely gentleness and consideration.
Gentleness.
Consider what it's like when you're not okay before you approach that
right.
person. And last but not least, check on your strong friend. And we'll keep that one brief because I think we definitely have just discussed everything about that. As a matter of fact, check on your strong friend first. If I could say anything, because your strong friend is normally the person that is absolutely putting things to the side and not taking care of themselves. You know, they're so strong because they take care of everyone else. They're so strong because, you know, the reasons we give them credit for being so strong are normally reasons that they're not checking on themselves or taking care of themselves. So check on your strong friend. They may not be okay. And the way to know when they're not okay is to simply sometimes just ask, are you okay? If they don't want to answer that, just be a friend. Listen. You'll hear it. You'll absolutely hear it. Veronica, thank you for every single moment that we just had where all of the information you gave was absolutely amazing. I have absolutely, without a doubt, enjoyed having you here today. You have been phenomenal in joining us in this wonderful topic of it's okay to not be okay. Because what we want to do is convey to the audience and kind of get out today is that it's okay to not be okay.
It is.
And, you know, when you find yourself not being okay, check on yourself, check on others, especially during this time right now. Things are going on with everyone, including and especially your strong friend. So, again, thank you for joining us today, Veronica. We have absolutely enjoyed you.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm coming to you guys after we just kind of wrapped up our segment on it's okay to not be okay. I wanted to definitely spend some time discussing this topic in its entirety and just give some information about what it takes to identify when we are not okay. I am, again, the lead therapist and the CEO here at Atrium Family Services, and I am currently a licensed clinical mental health clinician. So it is okay to not be okay, and it's absolutely okay to not be okay when we feel we're not okay. That's definitely a subject that as people we have avoided oftentimes. And I myself as a therapist find, even therapists, myself, or people around us often ignore when we're not okay. It's easy to get caught up in the mundane hustle bustle of everyday life. And, we get into chores, we get into being parents and workers and employees, so much so that we're not able to identify